Tell me what you're enjoying about being at Wales Comic Con today.
Well, it's my first time, and I'm kind of overwhelmed, to be honest, simply by the number of people, the extent to which they're fascinated by the show. I mean, it's wonderful. The knowledge that they have of it, the fact that so many of them come with so many. They've obviously done a lot of prep, they come with so many bits and pieces, whether it's DVDs or box sets or posters or whatever. It's an extraordinary event, and it's kind of weird just sort of seeing everything that's around us here.
Barristan is a great character. I mean, of course, we saw him in season 1, we've seen him again in season 3 now. Yeah. As a Kingsguard, he's had to be loyal, I feel, in a way, to the wrong people, hasn't he? He's had a madman, a drunk, and if he'd have stayed, he would have had to be loyal to Joffrey as well, wouldn't he? Yeah,
well, he actually has a scene in this series that's going out currently where he says precisely that he's, he understands his duty as a member of the Kingsguard is to be loyal to whoever is the ruler, but that he's been unlucky in his choices, and hopefully he's he's on the cusp of making a better choice, and would like to sort of serve out the rest of his days, as he says, actually with dignity. So.
Now, joining Daenerys, I feel, is going to be a big turning point for him. It's been a great part of the show so far. We've had about almost midway through the season. Yeah. What do you feel about Team Daenerys? Are you up for fighting for her, for the Iron Throne?
I think absolutely. I mean, I think there's no question Barristan would not have travelled the distance he did to find her unless he was very certain in his own mind that was where he wanted to be and that was who he wanted to support. And being the kind of man he is, I have no doubt that he will be entirely loyal to her all the way through. It'll be interesting to see what sort of implications that might have for others, but I have no doubt that Barristan has made a commitment. After all, I mean, going back in time, he was part of House Targaryen anyway, so there's no question in my mind that he is faithful to that cause.
And hopefully you won't have any awful treatment. I'm sure you won't from Dany like you did from Cersei and Joffrey. That was terrible, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, they're just impossible, those two. And, we'll wait and see what happens to both of them. But, I have every reason to believe that life with Daenerys will be a more positive experience. So wait and see.
Now, who do you think has what it takes to come out on top of Game of Thrones? Do you think it would be House Stark, House Targaryen, or House Lannister, or another house even?
What's fascinating about it is that some of the baddies become goodies, and some of the goodies, you begin to wonder if they're as good as they appear. So it's not clear cut, and the writing and the sense of uncertainty is brilliant in that respect. I mean, who would ever have thought at the beginning that Ned Stark was going to get killed, But the suspicion or the inference seems to be at the moment that Daenerys will ultimately, take over the Iron Throne. I can't help but feel that there's a whole story with Jon Snow that will somehow or another give him increased credibility. So how exactly those things come together, God knows. I mean, at this stage, the only one who knows is probably George, and I guess Dan and Dave might know, But I mean, it's definitely one that we can all speculate about, but nobody can be 100% sure about.
Do you think, Khaleesi, Dany would make a good Queen of the Seven Kingdoms?
Oh yeah, I think she's got all the right strengths. She's obviously proved that already. She's resilient, she's imaginative, she's far-sighted, she's a kindly ruler. She's demonstrated all of those things so far, so you can't help but think that if the throne deserves a good king or queen, which it does, that she's definitely the right candidate for it, and Barristan will obviously be supporting her in that cause.
What do you think it takes to survive in the very cutthroat world of Game of Thrones?
Probably luck more than anything else. Being a good person doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to survive any better than being a bit of a devil, Luck is probably a large part to do with it. Fate, I suppose. Having the right sort of support system is key, and right now you've got to say with the Dragons, Dany has the right kind of support system, so that's another good reason to be there, is the Dragons help keep you safe, so.
Exactly. Now, who would you like to find at the end of Barristan's sword in Game of Thrones? If you could have anybody, who would it like to be?
Oh, who would I like to polish off, you mean?
Yeah.
Wow. Bizarrely, I've never really stopped to think about that. And I know that some people will be taken care of by others anyway, so that's a hard one to know. Truthfully, I don't know that I can answer that.
Not a Joffrey or a Cersei, maybe?
Oh, well, yeah, I'd love to see, I'd love for something to happen to both of them. Absolutely. Well, no, you're right. In that sense, in terms of who does he have most cause to resent and who would he be most happy to see disappear, absolutely right. Either, in fact, both of them, without any question.
Yeah, so they better watch out, hey?
They're obnoxious, the pair of them,
And what are they like in real life, though, the actors working with them?
They're lovely. They're lovely people, but they're great at being obnoxious, but they are actually both very, very nice people, And Jack, who plays, what do you call him, Joffrey, I met him. I wasn't expecting to, because I worked with him in season 1, and then as it turned out, he had an episode to do that required him to turn up in Morocco. But we weren't expecting to. I wasn't expecting to see him, because all of our stuff was being done in Morocco necessarily. But I wasn't expecting. But some of the King's Landing stuff also ended up being shot there. So he turned up out of the blue. So it was nice to see him again after a couple of years. Cersei, Lena, I haven't seen since series 1. But then that's the weird thing about this. There's so many of us in it that, and people always assume, oh, well, you must know X, you must know Y. You can film, and never meet people. That's just the way it is. And I mean, with this, it's so big that there even are different crews. So, I mean, I worked very closely with the crew last year, and I will see many of them, I'm sure, again this coming year. Or, in fact, I had seen many of them previous to that. But, you don't really. I think the world out there imagines you all must know each other. And it's extraordinary the extent to which is to say, oh yes, I worked on that with X, but I never met X, so.
Somebody you did meet, obviously, is Emilia Clarke there, and of course Ian Glen as well. What do those guys like to work with?
Well, Ian I know from before, because we actually worked with on something over 20 years ago, I knew him and had met him. Emilia I met for the first time, lovely, I have to say, one of the great things about Game of Thrones is that people are all very decent. They're all very easy to work with. Everybody wants to try and basically make it, a successful event for people. So there's great willingness and there's great working together, pulling together, and I personally have never experienced any tension, between people or on set, and I think that's great. And long may it continue,
And you mentioned Morocco as well. What's it like filming out there?
Well, in a way, you have to say it must be great, and in a way it is. I mean, the hotels are beautiful, and the weather at that time of year is actually perfect, especially for us, because whilst it's hot, it's not too hot. But like anything, it has its downside. I mean, if you're working in 30-degree weather and you're wearing sort of like 4 layers of leather, it can be a bit tiring after a long day in the desert, and at times the days were long and it was tiring, And the only other downside really is flies.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Flies. Everywhere you look, flies. Well, the flies are everywhere, and the big problem is food, around food. So trying to eat your food and manage to eat it without flies pestering you all the time is but that's, in the scale of things, it's a very small negative, And
of course, you've been filming, you filmed in Belfast as well, and the Paint Hall, somewhere you've worked before, haven't you? What was it like returning there?
Yeah, the Paint Hall is an extraordinary venue. I mean, I remember, it's not that long ago, I remember when it was first mooted, that it could be a film studio location, because for years it had been literally where they painted the boats. I think initially people kind of thought, this doesn't seem realistic. And now, of course, it's a full-grown industry. And in fact, there's one new building purpose-built for filming in addition to the paint hall. And there's another one on the way because it's expanding, you know. So, no, it's great. It's great to have sort of a film facility and in fact, a burgeoning film kind of culture, if you like, developing on your own doorstep. And it really has. I mean, over, say, 10, 15 years at the most, Belfast has become now a sort of a significant film location. When I say Belfast, I mean Northern Ireland as a whole, which, frankly, before that it would not have been. In fact, I remember days when they used to shoot a lot of stuff about the Troubles in Belfast, say in the 80s. They never shot in Belfast. It was too dangerous. So, you know, you were going to Manchester or Liverpool or Leeds as a lookalike for Belfast. And if you ever did anything in Belfast, you especially if it involved being, say, in a police uniform or something like that, you wore one of these yellow kind of jackets off to do the shot, straight back on. You know, everything was done to kind of minimize the possibility of your being perceived as some sort of target, you know. So there was a time when it was very difficult to film there. So it's sort of freaky that now it's turned around the other way. And in fact, film is, frankly, now one of the kind of the economic kind of like keystones of the society, you know. I mean, film is a significant part. This, actually, Game of Thrones itself, significant part of the Northern Irish economy now, you know.
And there's so many beautiful places to film there as well along the coast. And so I know I remember talking to Gemma Whelan, who plays Yara Greyjoy, about filming there. And she's saying Antrim Coast, beautiful places.
Great locations. Antrim Coast, you know, has some of the most stunning scenery you could imagine. You know, it's a fantastic coast road journey. The other thing about it is that compared with a lot of places, everything's pretty easy to access. You know, if you're working in Belfast, that's dead on. If you want to get out of Belfast to work somewhere down the country, it's not a big deal. You know, the traffic doesn't make just the planning of a shooting day problematic. I mean, you film in London or any major city over here, it can be a hassle simply because of traffic, you know, and airplane noise and things like that, you know. I mean, we have those issues, obviously, but relatively, I think we're quite lucky that way, you know.
So a good place to shoot as an actor. Thinking about good or bad things for Barristan, I'm wondering whether, because he has a kind of mixed time of it, doesn't he, with his masters?
Yeah.
How would you think you'd fare if you were Barristan Selmy in real life? Do you think you'd be able to survive in his world?
Yes and no. I probably would not be as circumspect as Barristan is. Barristan is very good, I think, he's very good at being loyal. He's very good at knowing the place that he has chosen for himself and being faithful to it. And whilst he's prepared to speak his mind, I think he's also, you know, pretty careful about not necessarily ruffling too many feathers. I like to think I'd be the same, but every so often I might be a bit more quick to say something that I probably shouldn't say. Who knows? You know.
Now, what's it meant for you being part of Game of Thrones? Because it's so well loved, isn't it, around the world?
Well, I mean, the great thing about it is that you suddenly get a visibility that is bigger than anything you've ever had before. I mean, you know, I've done a fair bit, and I mean, people would recognize you from time to time. But, you know, I'd be like a lot of actors where people say, I sort of know the face, but I'm not quite sure of the name. Do you know what I mean? And that's a very nice position to be in because, you know, fame has probably as many, if not more, downsides than it has upsides, you know. But with this, suddenly, you know, you realize an awful lot of people out there know you, you know, or know of you, or know of the character at least, you know. You've actually got people who start to, quote, follow you, you know, and it's kind of weird. I mean, it's nice as long as it's in proportion, and I'm glad to say in the context of Barristan it is entirely in proportion, you know. But it's a sort of an unusual situation because, you know, you're not anticipating it. And when it happens, as I say, as long as it's in proportion, it's actually a very nice experience. You know?
And what would you like to say to the many fans of the show who are watching this video out there?
keep on watching. I'm delighted that you are watching it, and I hope you carry on enjoying it, and we carry on delivering it to you in a way that entertains and keeps you watching. So thank you.